Hello there, I'm Royce Pentaghast. I'm an artist, writer, radio producer, and for the last year or so I've been directing my own short film, Twisted Strangeness. Set in 2003 and follows a bunch of young people who go hunting for a monster, but a large part of the story is set in a video shop where the lead character Corey works. So it's a period piece. That meant having to source or make costumes, props and locations suitable for that era on a micro budget. I'm going to show some of them off in this video, show how they were made, and you can try spotting them in the finished film when it's released. Now first up is this choc milk carton. So I grew up in Western Australia, and for choc milk, the choice was between Masters or Browns. Not available in Tasmania, where the film was shot, and I wanted to have a go at making a cover for an existing carton. The film is kind of set in a vague anywhere Australia, but you know, it's probably not set in Alice Springs. I was initially going to make a Super Shake, another Browns product, but I ended up going with the standard choc chill. I washed the carton and took rudimentary measurements of it by photographing it against an A4 piece of paper, then importing that photo into the drawing app Procreate. Well, they're also Tassie based, funnily enough. Not sponsored, but hey, Savage Interactive, I use your app daily, I'm open. You might notice this is a Greens chilled choc and not a Browns choc chill. At the time I was worried about copyright or depicting a real product. It was a concern that hung over the whole film. You know, can we have movie posters on the wall? Can she wear an Iron Maiden t-shirt? I figured these details are incidental, they're in context in the story, so it shouldn't be a worry. The second prop was a disposable camera. I had memories of seeing these in a Kmart when I was young, so I found some pics online and made this. It's just a little box made of card, but it sells the effect. I ended up changing a few details here as well, like Kodak becomes Kojak. It's funny because when I was planning this movie and made this prop, I thought the camera would have a bigger role in the film, but it's barely there in the final product, so you'll have to keep an eye out for it. Another drink that was replicated was a Pepsi can, and there's a scene where a can is crushed by a character with relative ease. That was actually inspired by a series of prop showcase videos that Adam Savage did on his YouTube channel Tested, where he went to Earl Hayes Press and showed off these props that they made. I slapped together a design for the Pepsi can that was close to the Pepsi cans of the early 2000s. I had that printed, then laminated to give it that metal-like sheen. For the crushed can, I was originally going to have the top and the bottom of a real can, so I carefully cut a can up. I used hot glue to cover the sharp metal edges so the actors wouldn't get cut, but in the end, the taped together paper cylinders sold the effect. Funnily enough, shortly after making this prop, Pepsi redesigned their entire product again, and the shade of blue on the cans now is completely different to these ones, so I was lucky to make it when I did. Now this prop is from the sequel which I'm currently working on. It's a container from the fast food restaurant Chicken Treat. They don't exist in Tassie anymore, but I found pictures of the box in an old ad. It's funny that I'm here making replicas of these things that are meant to be disposable. You know, they're rubbish, but they're very evocative of that era and some people are even nostalgic for them. So being set in a video shop, you need videos. I was lucky to find a few in a mission shop for $1 each. Some of them, like the Star Wars or the Kenny and Spenny one, I bought online for a few dollars more. Nothing too bad. If there was a cover we didn't have, easy as, find a picture of the cover online, print it out, slip it in the case. The same approach was taken for the Xbox games, the most prominent being the Blinx Timesweeper one. We also had a few copies of Halo, including one which looks sun-bleached, which I did with a simple effect I painted on. The lead character Corey is an expert on the weird and supernatural, so she's done her studies and written herself a notebook. Corey's actress Amy drew the cover and I photocopied it just in case it was damaged. Inside there's a few quick sketches I made, printouts of things relevant to Corey's research, there's homages and even a few little sight gags. I also made this page for an article on runes. So I have these great big books, these Reader's Digest dictionaries that my grandma had. They're real time capsules of the time they were made, and I even have references to people that the Reader's Digest audience might know, like Vanessa Redgrave, but there was nothing of note on runes, so I had to make that. I made this on Procreate again, printed it on parchment paper to give it that textured look like the real pages, and made only what would be seen on screen. There's so many other little bits of set dressing, like the signs of the opening times for the store. The open sign was also printed, it was much cheaper than buying a plastic one. And even little things like flyers for upcoming events, social groups, there's photos of the owner's pets and fridge, the pizza menu. These are barely seen in the final film, but they do a lot to make the environment feel tangible. I had to make fake money as well, which I made sure to label as a prop. So the badges were made from scratch, the stars show what a star employee Corey is, and the boss, Balthazar, his real name has been covered by his nickname. I did this to show that there was a history to these props, and there were choices made that led to them looking this way. There's a few things I had which were already in my collection. I still had the family PlayStation and the controller, the Bionicle, Tahu Nuva, I know my Bionicles, and I managed to find this John Connor toy for like $5 at a salvage store. I have this old angle-necked army torch, very LA Noire, and a classic flick-out lightsaber I found on eBay for cheap. Lava lamps and plasma globes feel like they were objects of my childhood. Even though I never had them, I knew friends who did, and they were always in cool shops that I'd go into. Some actors were able to provide props as well. There was a Star Trek video that came in handy, even after I'd made my own. And Charlotte, who plays Ivana, provided the Buzz Lightyear, which was a proper one from Toy Story 2, as well as the cassettes and radio. The Chup Chup container I got from a local cafe. I went in, explained what I was doing, and they gave me an empty one they were going to throw out. I did have to buy the lollipops myself, but it did a lot to set the scene. I also have to give a shout out to Scenic Island Gaming in Launceston, who lent me this leather pouch and all the weird and wonderful D&D dice within. There's so many other random things that were made for this film, like the high school uniforms worn by the characters of Hannah and Ivana, and other random bits you'll just have to see in the final film. I hope you check it out. Which prop shown here was your favourite? Anyway, I'm Royce, and thanks for watching.